He must not reach the Pharaoh before the festival.
The wine has been prepared, my queen.
Good. Tonight, we secure our future.
People imagine the Pharaoh as a man, a crown, a throne, a cold stare, a ruler who simply had power. But that picture is too small. Because the Pharaoh wasn't just a king, he was the system itself. In modern countries, power is split. Government makes laws, courts judge them, religion stays separate. Even symbols of the nation are mostly symbolic. Ancient Egypt didn't do that. For them, the Pharaoh wasn't a politician. He was a living link between humans, nature, and the divine. Here's the modern mistake. We treat the Pharaoh like a CEO of Egypt. But the Pharaoh wasn't a manager. He was closer to an operating system. Because ancient Egypt wasn't built on the idea of progress, it was built on the idea of continuity. The question wasn't, how do we reinvent the country? The question was, how do we stop the world from falling apart? And that sounds dramatic, until you remember what their world looked like. Most people lived one harvest away from disaster. Their survival depended on something they couldn't control, the Nile. Too little flood and fields dried. Too much flood and villages vanished. No flood at all, and famine followed. So they didn't just need engineering, they needed meaning. They needed an explanation strong enough to hold society together even when nature didn't cooperate. That's where the Pharaoh comes in. Because in Egypt, natural order and social order were the same thing. If the river behaved, the world was in order. If it didn't, the world was out of order. And the Pharaoh's job was not simply to rule people, but to keep order itself alive. The word you need to know is ma'at. Ma'at wasn't just law. It wasn't just truth. It wasn't just justice. It was the entire idea that reality has a proper shape, a correct balance. Ma'at meant the seasons make sense, society makes sense, life makes sense. And when Ma'at breaks, chaos enters. They had a word for that too. Isfet, disorder, collapse, the breakdown of reality. So when we ask, what made pharaohs powerful? The answer is not only soldiers. The answer is, the pharaoh claimed responsibility for Ma'at. He didn't just command armies. He performed rituals. He made offerings. He appeared in ceremonies that signaled, order is still here. This is why Egyptian rule feels strange to modern people, because a modern ruler is judged by outcomes. Jobs, roads, prices, wars won. A pharaoh was also judged by outcomes, but not in a modern way. If harvests failed, it wasn't just bad policy. It could be seen as cosmic failure. In other words, the pharaoh wasn't only managing a state, he was managing the story that the state was built on. And stories, when millions believe them, are not soft power. They are hard infrastructure. Now, if the pharaoh is the system, who actually runs the system day to day? The scribes. This is the part people skip, but it matters. Because Egypt didn't function on vibes. It functioned on records. Who owns land? How much grain is stored? Who owes tax? Who can be drafted? What goes to the temples? What goes to the army? Writing wasn't decoration. Writing was control. And in a world without spreadsheets, without computers, without even cheap paper, the ability to record information was power. Scribes didn't just write things down. They turned a river economy into a predictable machine. And that machine fed everyone above it, officials, priests, soldiers, builders. So when people say, the pharaoh built pyramids, that's like saying, a modern president built a power plant with his own hands. No. The pharaoh made the project real politically and symbolically, but the system, scribes, logistics, labor organization, made it possible. Which means the real miracle of Egypt wasn't stone. It was administration. A civilization that could coordinate resources at scale, consistently, across centuries. That's not romance. That's governance. So, were pyramids about ego? Not in the simple way people think. Yes, pharaohs wanted legacy, but the pyramid wasn't just a personal trophy. It was a national project that reinforced the system. Think about what a massive project does to a society. It creates jobs. It organizes labor. It standardizes supply chains. It forces planning. It centralizes authority. And it produces a visible result that says, this state is stable enough to do the impossible. A pyramid isn't just a tomb. It's a statement. We can mobilize thousands. We can feed them. We can coordinate them. We can finish what we start. That is political power in stone. And it matters because Egypt's biggest weakness wasn't invasion. It was fragmentation. If local power grows too strong, the state fractures. Monumental projects, temples, pyramids, national rituals pull everything toward the center again. So the pyramid wasn't only for the pharaoh. It was for the system that kept the pharaoh real. Egypt lasted in recognizable form for roughly 3,000 years. That's hard to even imagine. Empires today can barely keep a stable identity for a few centuries. So why did Egypt last? Not because it was flexible, because it was consistent. It offered people an agreement. If you keep your role, the world stays in order. Farmers farm, scribes record, priests interpret, officials enforce. And above it all, one symbol gathers it into meaning, the pharaoh. This structure made Egypt resilient, but here's the cost. A system built for stability becomes hostile to change. Innovation can look like disruption. Disruption can look like chaos. Chaos threatens Ma'at. So Egypt didn't chase new, it protected working. And that's why the system could survive droughts, dynastic problems, even invasions. Sometimes because the deeper idea stayed intact. As long as people believed Ma'at was real. And the pharaoh maintained it. The machine kept running. People want collapses to look dramatic. A big battle, a burning palace, a final pharaoh, a clean ending. But ancient systems often die differently. They die when belief becomes thin. When the symbol stops feeling inevitable. When the rituals feel like performance instead of reality. When the administration can't keep promises. When the Nile doesn't cooperate. When the center can't hold. The pharaoh didn't stop being a king. The pharaoh stopped being the system. And once that happens, you can still wear the crown. So the pharaoh wasn't just a ruler. He was the living idea that the world was still in order. That society still made sense. That the river, the harvest, the law, and the gods were aligned. When that idea weakened, the system weakened with it, not with an explosion, with silence. Vizoda.